Hello world, I'm your host, Adam Mighty Mike, and on this episode of the podcast, we are going to talk about how to become an immigration activist. Today's guest is Pasha Petronav. He is an activist for the Slavic immigrants here in Spokane, Washington. He is a member of the Spokane Slavic Association, where he educates, empowers, and organizes the Spokane Slavic community. I am highly confident at the end of this period of instruction, you will be able to take what you have learned and apply it to your brand or business, and that is called value, and because of that, you should like this video. Remember that sharing is caring, and subscribing means you are taking the steps today to make a better life for yourself, and smashing the bell means that you get sustainable value. But first, you too can also get more wealthy by buying shares of stock in insurance companies that are good, such as Primerica, ticker symbol PRI. Primerica is a great growth stock with a healthy dividend. The dividend is tax-free compensation for risk. Be sure to pick up some Primerica stock for your portfolio. Primerica, ticker symbol PRI. Ready to rock. Pasha, tell the world about you.
Well, my name is Pasha Petronav, everyone. And I grew up in Ukraine, came here in the year 2000. And so I've been here for the last 23 years. And there's a lot we can chat about today, which I'm excited to chat with Mike. But we'll get in there. But I do everything from the world of finance and the professional life, and a lot of community engagement in our city for outside of professional life.
Yeah, talk about the work you've been doing with immigrants.
Yeah. So being an immigrant, you get to experience a lot, right? When we came here in 2000, it was a family of 5 with $800 and first mortgage due or rent due. So definitely we utilize the services. So we found out how welfare system works, how benefit works, how clothes banks works, how food banks works. So it was definitely a journey. So I can talk to folks from personal experience, which is, there was a community and services that helped us in 2000. And I want to make sure folks that are coming in, they are kind of standing on their shoulders and have a quicker process to utilize what they need and kind of get off those services and launch either intrapreneur or entrepreneur, whichever pathway they decide to go into, and just have a quicker process than we did when we came 23 years ago.
Cool. So how did you go? Talk about your farthest back memory from Ukraine, and how did you go from there to where you are now?
Yeah. So the farthest one back is, I'd say, in the 90s. My dad was a former boxer, not the pro level, but the amateur level. So some of the memories we had, I have an older brother and a younger sister. But growing up, all we did is watch a lot of Mike Tyson videos and practiced just with my brother of just the skill of boxing, which I still love to this day.
Good. Have you considered training?
I did. Actually, Downtown Boxing is a club that we have here in Spokane. And before I was married, I actually go and train. So I train with all the trainers and train with some of the UFC fighters that were training up and trying to get into the UFC world. But I just did more for recreational and fitness, just kind of staying fit.
Just Dutch style boxing?
I don't know, just the classic boxing. There's always submission too. Mm-hmm. So that club was pretty nice because they had 5 different trainers, everything from just traditional boxing to submission to jiu-jitsu. So it was kind of nice where you could go train with one trainer on one style, and if you wanted to change it up a little bit, you always had another trainer in the club that knew another tactic or a different expertise that I wouldn't know.
Cool. So that's kind of like where I go. Well, no, it's only jiu-jitsu now.
Yeah.
They had Muay Thai at one point, but we didn't get the option. We didn't for between Muay Thai. It was one or the other. But that's an important thing. I feel. I really think that jiu-jitsu is a lot of fun in the just grappling and rolling around.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it keeps you fit. So whatever you do, it's good for your mental health and it's good for your physical health. So that's why I enjoyed it. And then as kids, our dad made us, so we didn't have a choice.
Yeah. So what about your kids? Are you gonna force them into the world of mixed martial arts?
We're thinking about it. So my son's 11, and he's been actually asking for it.
Oh, good.
So probably something to do with. I think we'll get him either the jiu-jitsu or Krav Maga seems pretty interesting to me. They have a couple clubs here in town, but it's something we want to do just as a family. So my wife and my daughter can do it too.
Yeah, well, you can definitely do jiu-jitsu as a family. That's what's fun about that is they have the kids session, and then right after that, goes to adults. So the kids are tired out, and they just kind of like hang out on this in the mat room in the back, and then yeah, it's a good system.
Yeah, it's
a great system. Where do you live in Spokane relative to here?
Yeah, so in Spokane, I live in kind of in the West Plains.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm in Spokane area, but I'm really towards the Cheney area at the same time. So happy medium.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what it's like to live out there because I lived out in Fairfield for a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm about 10 minutes away from there.
Yeah, yeah. My kids went to Liberty at one point when they were living here, but yeah, that was Farmville. Well, good. So talk about cool. You were into MMA, and how did you get into the world of finance?
Yeah. So we'll give you kind of version. So for me, I was in school, so actually I went to 3 high schools. So I went to U High, which is here in the valley. Then my parents moved to the Hilliard area, so I went to Rogers, part of my high school, but I graduated at Meade. So had all 3, and I liked education. I just didn't really like the structure of the traditional school, so I really wanted to go to college or accelerate things. So I had this idea just to hit the workforce. So I started actually building homes. I worked with my cousin. He has a pretty successful actually construction company in town. It's probably the top 5 biggest ones here. And when I was working with him, it wasn't that big. So I kind of started just the trades. Started learning how to frame, how to side, how to do all construction, and that was good. When you have the fitness health and you get the elements of the weather, because some people try to avoid the elements, you actually enjoy the elements. But then got hurt a couple times, and had a cousin that was in the pharmaceutical world. Mm-hmm. So she was in the pharmacy world, and she, I was a single guy. She said, "Hey, Pasha, you ever thought about
stealing drugs?
Being a legal drug dealer? It's called a pharmacist." So, and I was like, "Oh, what is it? Why would I ever want to be a pharmacist?" Right? I'm just building homes, in the construction world. And she said, "Well, pharmacists make pretty good money." They do. I said, "Legal drug dealer it is." So I want to become a pharmacist. So that's kind of when I started my first journey getting out of construction world to get into the pharmacy world. And I did that in January 08. So I just kind of actually smoothly, I can tell everybody, I predicted the market, which I didn't. It's just the circumstances that lined up. I left construction in January of 08 and kind of missed that and went into the pharmaceutical world. and I actually worked for Bates Pharmacy. I was a locally owned. Unfortunately, went bankrupt. It's no longer around, but it was a great community pharmacy in the community. So I started working there, and the 5 pharmacists that worked there, they said, "Hey, Pasha, don't do it." So kind of interesting, you have all these pharmacists, which I'm going to school to be. They say, "Pasha, don't do it. You should go for business." Look at the owner here. He's here a couple times a week, and he has time and freedom. We make pretty good money, but if we could turn the time back, we'd probably go for business or something else. And that's not a common thing, I guess, but there's a lot a pharmacist could do these days. But I was just, it was a small company, so most of them kind of sat in a cubicle, just counting pills. So yeah, definitely not everything that career offers, but that's what they were offering. That's where I was. So I decided to kind of pivot and start exploring business.
Okay, so all right, so you went from construction to pharmacy, and then you said, I'm going into business. And so how did you take that pivot, and what did you do from there?
Yeah, well, there's a saying, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And
that's a good one.
Yeah, when I was still in the pharmacy, I was getting married, and I decided with my wife that just keep our eyes open. But one thing I realized is I don't know much about finance, right? So we were renting at the time, and all I remember is the gentleman who taught me everything about finance. I was ready, and out of nowhere he appeared, and we had a conversation. That's all that it was. And the only thing I remember is mortgages, right? I was living in rent, had so much interest in either buying a home or building a home, if that was a possibility, since I was in the trade, just needed the financing. And I remember when my parents came here to the U.S., I used to go and translate for them. And I remember they had like a inch thick folder when they go do a mortgage. And all I remember from that conversation with that gentleman, his name was Dave, is, hey, would you like us to actually teach you what's in that contract? All the gotchas, the good and the bad and the ugly. And it's one of the most expensive purchases somebody's going to make. So that just kind of triggered to me. I didn't know what I wanted to do in business, and for me, but I knew I needed to know finance. I needed to know, how finances work, how taxes work. Doesn't matter what business it's going to be in. So my initial reaction was, hey, I just want to learn for myself. I want to get educated and know how things work. And the more I started educating myself, I found that, like the Slavic community, which is pretty big in Spokane, nobody has financial literacy. And the folks that do, they migrated here, so their financial literacy is quite different or not appropriate for the system that we live in the States.
Yeah, and that's by design too, because I don't think people want people to be financially literate. I think everybody wants people to be financially literate, but there's people that don't want you to be financially literate. They want you chasing these illusions like a house or a car or debt. Go into debt. And as like just a continuous thing. And I think of what Benjamin Franklin said. He said, I'd rather sleep without dinner than arise in debt.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, more on the world of, and that's my run of my tangents. Anyway, more on the world of financial. Where did you first start learning?
Well, what I did is I started working for a company. So I was an independent contractor. So it gave me the flexibility to still be in the pharmaceutical world and kind of, again, get exposed to the financial world, first for self-interest and self-knowledge.
Yeah.
And then part of that training is there's a license, there's the legalities, right? Getting licensed. So you're getting through a lot of material or class that you need to legally have the licensure and be able to talk to folks about it. So that was my first exposure there. But another unique part where I worked was it's called field training. So we're actually in the field. It's not book knowledge. There's sometimes where you've been to school, you can learn something, but you really don't know something until you actually do it.
Yeah.
And you have that hands-on experience. So we did those. It's called field training appointments. So somebody who was more expertise in the area I was learning, I would learn it in a book. I would learn it, out of material, but then actually go in real life and see it get done. To kind of understand how finances work, and the good and the bad, I'd say, and the ugly, because there's definitely, I would say, being in it for 12 years, there's a lot of predatorial, practices, unfortunately, in finance, and sometimes folks and companies just want to make a quick buck of somebody, and if somebody's just not geared and equipped with the knowledge, they don't know even that they're taken to the woodshed. Mm-hmm. So I think that was a big one for me. Is I like by nature, I like to correct a wrong. I like doing what's right. And when I got exposed to the financial world, I saw a lot of things that were getting done, not to help people, but take advantage of people that were just not educated or not informed. They either were not informed at all or misinformed on the information. So my always belief is, and I didn't even grow up here. I had to learn English. I learned English. My first word I learned was on the plane here. So I think if I could learn just the knowledge, anybody here, as long as they get access to the right information, I would say most folks can make an educated decision. They don't need some guru. They don't need some, somebody who's really, really smart, which the industry sometimes makes people feel like they need somebody. No, we just need to have the right information and a guide for a period of time. And then we can be financially dependent and make our own decisions because we have the information.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, you brought up some good points. So what are some common predatory tactics so people know how to avoid those?
Yeah. I'll mention the most common ones I run into. And the one common one has to do with, first is just the knowledge, right? Just missing the information. So would be get the right information. If somebody goes to the bank, what kind of information would they get? Right? Just kind of asking what is the industry? What's the bank trying to do? Right? They're in the business of, lending, getting folks into some debt, using some of their money. They're not really in the educational. It doesn't benefit the bank if somebody's educated. Then if somebody goes to, like an accountant, that's always good. That's a good source of information. But accountants are usually, count what happened, not what's going to happen. There's some differently practices, but that's the most common. They're really, really good at what happened and just making sure they accurately capture that. And most folks just go to the information. They go to they Google it, right? And that's the toilet of information of the world. There's a lot of good information, but there's a lot of bad information and misinformation. So my first thing, would actually just tell people, or we see people get in trouble, is where do they go to get the information? And that information is it geared or armed in a certain way for a certain purpose, for somebody to benefit for giving that information to somebody. So that'd be one. Just be careful where you go for your information. Two, there's some definitely bad practices in the financial world, and depending what kind of insurance you buy, specifically with life insurance, there's a lot of big uptick. If you go on social media or TikTok right now or Instagram. There's all these pop-ups of financial gurus, but when you look them up, they're not licensed. So any information they give, they don't have any fiduciary responsibility, and nobody can really come after them if they gave bad advice. Where we see commonly people just get bad advice from somebody who's not licensed to give the advice and start making big decisions, and sometimes it costs them their life savings. And there's nobody to be held accountable. So that's a big one. Just say, hey, make sure whoever you're getting that information from has some responsibility, specifically with, recommending certain insurances or kind of investment products or anything in financial world.
Okay, so like what would be an example of somebody using a predatory tactic in the world of selling insurance?
Yeah. Well, one big one is we call it whole life insurance. Is a big one where a lot of folks, they buy an insurance product that's tied with either a savings or some kind of investment product bundled. So they're buying two things that shouldn't be bought together. And when they sell them, they sound really good, right? Like if you don't use it, you don't lose it, right? But there's all these additional things that go into a whole life policy. So if you ever need the insurance, they have the insurance available, but everything the person put away into a cash value account, they could lose that and the company takes it. So it's kind of, hey, they're paying for two products, but they're only left with one product. Unless they, buy additional things and usually pay a premium to get the additional. So most of the time it's kind of like the Dave Ramsey approach is don't mix the things, right? If your insurance is doing good, you keep it. And if you don't like it, you have the opportunity to change it without affecting anything else. Same thing with, maybe certain savings or investment strategies. You don't want to tie it to anything. If you don't like the way it's functioning, you can change it without affecting anything else. Cool. So, our always thing is, kind of.
There you go.
All right.
Usually people feel better when the camera's off them anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so that's a good point. So don't buy whole life insurance.
Yep.
You should keep the things you purchase separately versus together. All right, so that's one tactic. What's another tactic that people might do for predatory lending or predatory whatever in your industry? Predatory financial gain.
Yeah. Well, a lot of folks try to, they don't have, I'll give you more from the, because I am in the investment world and I do have fiduciary responsibility. So I can't make recommendations on the air, but I can give some good tips for folks to avoid. Is first, have questions that you can ask somebody before you decide to work with somebody, either a person or a company. Upfront questions so you understand, what can they do, what can't they do for you, because maybe there's something you needed done. That person is not even licensed to do it, so they can't really, even if they want to help you, they can't help you. Two is finding out, don't try to invest into things that you don't understand. That's the most common one. There's a lot of things that exist. There's a lot of different products. There's a lot of different vehicles, but just a good rule of thumb, if you don't understand it, just wait and invest into things you do understand. Knowing the cost, also asking, there's always a cost reward. Nothing's free. Somebody's promising something for nothing. That's just gonna be a red flag for somebody. And just having a plan and a strategy is way more important than just products. The industry likes to just have transactions and not have a relationship. So if I could leave just one golden nugget to somebody, is just find somebody that you can have a lifelong relationship with, that you trust, and they have you your back on anything financial. Doesn't matter if you're going through a good time, through a bad time. They're there for you for the long run, and they're there for your family as well, and they have skin in the game, versus just having a transaction and not having no I would say relationship. We have plenty of those that just want to sell you something and see you later.
Well, cool. So what do you say to the immigrants for the classes that you help them out with business development? What do those look like?
Yeah. So we started to do about a year ago, probably a year and a half, when the war broke out in Ukraine. We started getting an influx of immigrants from all over Europe that came here to Spokane. And anything we could, folks, there's a lot of good-hearted people here. I'd say Slavic, non-Slavic, didn't really matter, but the community itself responded so positively with resources, with with education, with anything they could help out with. So there's a group of us that got together and just wanted to, we're all volunteers. None of us are getting paid, but we just wanted to, find out if, is there any subject matter expert in an area that we could just give good, solid advice? So the question I always ask, when we came in 2000, what kind of help would mean a lot to us if somebody would be able to offer it, because that didn't exist. So a lot to do is with kind of guiding folks is, hey, folks, if you want to start a business, if you're an entrepreneur, how do you do it the correct way? Right? What does it take here in Washington to open up a business? What's the paperwork? How do you pick a entity? Like, what kind of licenses you need to get? What kind of bond do you need to get? Just things of that nature. They're just might be simple to some folks, but business world work completely different in Europe. Doesn't matter if it's Ukraine or Moldova or Belarus. Just those countries, business functions differently, and there's different laws and different taxes that apply or don't apply. So we try to give them the information to kind of gear them up, and that will help them. Hey, I want to pursue the entrepreneurial pathway, or hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, right? I want to find a good company where I could work for. So that's been kind of a good way just to educate folks so they can make a decision which pathway they want to go. And they've been working with other employers in the community to find out, like, hey, if there's a workforce shortage, so like, hey, how do we actually connect our community with the business owners, any business owner in the area, to get them good people. And then if there's any transportation or any kind of things that need to accommodate them for a while they get on their feet, how would that work? How can we negotiate? Maybe if they're using apps like Uber, Lyft, other folks, like how can we get them there? Or is there any way to have a central location to them to get picked up and taken to work, so we can solve our community's problem that we need more folks in the workplace, but then we have a workforce, and then kind of accommodate and create those solutions to barriers that might exist for them.
Yeah, I hope they aren't getting held trying to get jobs, because there's definitely a labor shortage.
Yeah, well, a lot of them, it was a little bit difficult in the beginning because many folks came ready to work, but the paperwork is what was the biggest barrier.
Yeah.
Our family, we actually sponsored 2 girls that would live with us. And we got them in May of 2022, and they're ready to go. And some of them already had English skills because they took English back in Europe, and they only got their work authorization October. Right, so it kind of gives them that like almost half a year of idle time to do nothing. And so I think they're trying to improve that process because there's the legality of having the right paperwork to go and get employment too, which is not the easiest. And I think having COVID slowed some of those government paperwork processes as well. I think there's like a backlog.
Yeah, I think it's probably faster to become a business and start working than it is to work for somebody.
Yeah, I think we have a good good mix in the community. I think that's the one thing I notice is I'm really opportunistic and more excited where our whole community as a whole, not just the Slavic community, but the Spokane community, is to create that bridge with the Slavic community and the non-Slavic. Because there's a lot of like workforce, there's a lot of talent that came, there's a lot of businesses that are going to be amazing in the next 12 to 18 months that are bringing outside perspective, outside business skills to the community. But also there's a lot of people that came from that were really, really good managers and leaders within companies. So I think it creates a lot of opportunity for other companies just to pick up talent that's available. So I'm excited that there's more communication because sometimes a lot of folks forget how big the Slavic community and it's the biggest community pocket that exists. So, but a lot of folks don't tap into it, and unfortunately, there's not as much support too. So one thing one of our main objectives is get kind of state attention about some of the resources and help to see if we can get our community involved as well, because it's been kind of ignored for a while.
So where do you guys meet at? How do you get the word out?
Yeah, a lot of channels is non-traditional. So it's I don't know if you heard of Viber. It's a chat technology similar to
like WhatsApp or something?
Something like that. Yeah,
Okay.
most folks, but a lot of folks use Viber. It's like a social media app that's a lot more used in Europe. So folks that are coming here, there are all these, like if you know Facebook groups, right? It's kind of the Viber groups. There's all these groups of people. So usually we communicate through Viber, and there's all these chat rooms. So if you need to, it's interesting. I have my phone. I could show you. Right, we have folks that come and they might need some furniture. They might need some supplies, and that request just goes on Viber and people respond. Have you heard of the Ukrainian closet by any chance?
The what?
Ukrainian closet?
Sorry.
No. Yeah, so
Ukrainian.
Ukrainian Closet is it's a nonprofit company that pretty much you go into. It's on Division at the Y up north. It's on the right on the so you can see it right by. But it's a clothing store, and it has canned food, it has clothes, it has furniture, has a lot of essentials. But folks go there and pick things up, and it's no cost, it's free. So it's kind of unique where there's all these resources that are available for folks, and it's open to everyone. But it kind of started because a lot of folks that come, they get an apartment, but then they have nothing to furnish it with. They have nothing to kind of cook on. So they're always looking. So it became a kind of avenue to help folks to get really on their feet. So that's one, and there's more in the community that have different programs to help people.
Cool. So where do you guys give out the classes? Do you do them at a certain location, or do you change it up?
Yeah, and there's multiple organizations that strictly focus on the Slavic community or the Ukrainian community that's coming. So they're held at different places because what we try to do is just find a place that can host, that has the facility in the room. And then the invites go out and people get together. So it's not one central place. Sometimes it's a one location because they can accommodate, 100 people. Another place can only accommodate for 30, and it might be a smaller group. It might be a topic that is specific to a certain group of people or a certain interest. So we'll have it at random places. We've been utilizing like Thrive International. They're right by Sacred Heart. They do a lot of outreach in the Ukrainian community. We've been utilizing some church buildings. We've been utilizing just coffee shops. We've been utilizing actually, we used a truck shop, like of a trucking company. We just used their kitchen. So they just kind of offered it. So whoever gave us, room to host, and even we hosted, my business, we have a pretty, part of our lease, we have a pretty big conference room. So we hosted some workshops with some immigration attorneys and a translator trying to get folks information. Just, hey, what are your options? You showed up here because folks came through different channels. There wasn't like one properly. There's some folks that went through the Mexico. There's some folks that went through U4U is another program that exists. And so the way they came here gives them certain, I would say, rights and certain opportunities, more or less. So not everybody, it's not like a streamlined information. So, and there's a lot of misinformation. Just, folks go and, unfortunately, like I said, you Google stuff and you go to YouTube, right? You can watch a lot of things. That's where a lot of them get the information, and we try to correct that because first of all, it might be right information, just not for the state, right? Things that are in New York could be way different than they're here in Washington. Or we can just go across border, Idaho, right? It's a different state, so it might have different laws and different programs and different, municipality structure. So just folks don't know. That's, we have 50 states. Things could be different, even though it's correct information. It just might not be correct for the state that we live in.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of good points. There's a lot of different nuances in the law. So where do you see all that going? Where do you want it to go?
Yeah. Well, our vision. So I'm on a board of a nonprofit called Spokane Slavic Association, and that that board helped create the Ukrainian Closet, and we're also working on other projects. And the goal of that organization is really to unite the Slavic community. First, find out what are, because we started hosting these workshops because we got the feedback, right? We kind of put out surveys and put out things. What do people either have pain points with? What are the main areas of friction? And then we try to come up with, it could be our group, or we'll try to partner with somebody else. We partnered with, last week we did a workshop, and a lot of folks had questions about just finances and business. Like how does payroll work? How do taxes work? Right? So we brought a tax professional that's been in that field for 20 years, and they're Slavic, so they can actually explain. I'm in the financial world, and it's a different language, right? We speak English, but you start talking financial, could be a completely different language to somebody, right? With any other topics, it's
kind of vague and broad, like
tech. Yeah, and they like you said, tech is the perfect one where you need, I would say, a translator that can talk the tech world. If somebody, for example, is a coder, right? And you want something done. And if a person's not into tech, they know what they want to see on a screen. But how you explain that to a person who's going to code it and make what they want, it needs to be explained the correct way, and vice versa. So I think that's what we're trying to do is in our community is, hey, be that kind of voice, is finding out what is the community dealing with, what's going pretty well, and how can we sustain those things that are not working, find out why they're not working, and bring the right people to the table. And we're missing, right? It's not only Slavic. We need certain expertise that are outside of our community, and we want folks to come and join and provide their expertise. One example I could give that's pretty important is like mental health and behavioral health stuff. You got folks that escaped a pretty dramatic war zone, and folks that served, they know when you come back, it takes a little bit of while to integrate back into society, and sometimes there's things you got to deal with. But a lot of them that came here that went through something that maybe they've seen things or even experienced things that they haven't before. While everything's busy, they're trying to get things going. It's not on top of their mind, but there's going to come a time you need to deal with what you experience and what you lived. And we don't have that many professionals in the community, in the city, that have that education and expertise. So that's one big one, is like, how do we bridge that gap? Because again, you can get a translator, get other people involved. The way that industry works, or behavioral health, mental health, it's pretty private too, and for certain for good reasons. But you're not going to bring a group discussion, to deal with somebody, and somebody might view it a different way culturally, because each nation, each culture sees some of those conditions or diseases and treatment, not always the traditional treatment maybe that U.S. offers. Right, like a good example would be I worked with a lot of folks on the Asian culture on the west side, and acupuncture. There's other different kind of ways they deal with medicine, but it's not always the common way that medicine's looked up here. So you still need to have a tailored approach if you're going to work with a community, to give them services and actually solutions that, well, one, work, and two, that are culturally appropriate. And you engage them versus kind of distance them by maybe pushing something that just because you don't understand how they function.
Yeah, that is a very difficult thing. And at what cost? And at what cost?
Absolutely.
But tell me more about the Slavic board you're on. That board. So when did that get founded, and what was the origins behind that?
So it was founded over 2 years ago. So PreWar, which is good. There was something where there was a vision of a group of people to, again, become a resource to the community, because there's not that many programs. You can look at grants, you can look at organizations. There's not much, if you look, that's pre-war that was focused on. I mean, if you have between it's a different number when you look, but if you have somewhere between 70 and 100,000 Slavic people in the Spokane area nearby, that's a huge population. We're not talking about 1,000 or 10,000 people. We're talking, potentially 10% of Spokane's population. And it's really rarely talked about. There's not that many services or, organizations that focus and work with the community. So the goal from, that organization that was started was started more from how do we get the community more engaged and help them in any way we can. So, the effects of the war and everything going on with COVID, a lot of just changes in the community, I think created a pretty good opportunity to help, which it has. I think last time we looked at, we're able to help over 2,000 people through some services and like directly, and there's a lot that aren't indirectly. So it's a good way to get the process going. of that organization. And again, it's nonprofit, so a lot of us are volunteers, right? So we're kind of volunteering our time, our energy, trying to create that awareness and opportunity. Because folks that migrated here, we talked about the jobs together, the job opportunity, but our area is facing housing crisis. Pre-war, pre-COVID, we have some housing problems in the community, and that's just added to it. So how do we actually solve the housing problem? How do we work with the community again? Because our community is pretty big into construction and transportation. There's a lot of different industries we're in, but I would say we excel in those. Really, really good builders. A lot of them do a good job. So if somebody's willing to kind of partner and work with us on helping, because we need to solve that problem for our community. That's the number one thing. To get an apartment, it's like $1,500 to start off somewhere. It's not cheap.
I know. It's not.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Yeah. So how do we have that? Because there's a lot of resources, just a lot of silos. Not even outside our market, but that's one problem that's one of our main objectives is how do we get folks, because they moved here, they need to live somewhere. They can't live, like a lot of folks are living in like transitional housing where they can be there for a while, but they need to have a pathway out of there. But okay, they graduate, they're ready to go. Where do they go? Right? So we need to create more affordable housing, but then again, it's how do we just not provide that housing? How do we have people, I always like saying skin in the game. How can they help? Help the community solve the problem, and by solving that problem, they help themselves. So that's kind of what we're looking for is how do we get folks that have the talent and the skills that came here, how can they help kind of solve their own problem, but solving their own problem, they help the city solve some of their problems as well. So that's kind of some of the goals that we have really shortly to tackle. But one thing at a time. It seems like there's so much you can tackle, but I don't know. The nonprofit world's not always the easiest things because it's everybody's time, it's everybody's energy to get it done.
Yeah, and you bring up some good points. So, the owner of Nick's Boots.
Okay.
I was not the owner, I'm sorry, general manager. Either way, he was talking to me one day, and he was saying that the Ukrainian immigrants are the only ones that are basically keeping them going, because they come here and they actually know what they're doing, and they work hard in the cobbler field, the ones that are cobblers.
Yeah,
because that's kind of one of those in demand trades. It's one of those trades that you don't think about. So that's good that and that seems to be an American thing, is how we solve the labor problem is through immigration. And at what point is it like, because I would imagine there's some people that just want to work and they don't care. They want to go to work. They aren't going to wait around. They're going to do under the table jobs. And I bet there is all sorts of ways for people to work under the table jobs if they wanted, or cash-based jobs. What about the process of getting a driver's license and being Uber?
Yeah. A lot of folks, some folks that came already had like a European driver license or whichever country they came from. So for them, it's not that difficult to obtain one here. And the licensing department made it. And I mean, they have materials and, in English, they have it in Russian, they have it in Ukrainian. So whatever language somebody needs to speak, they can give them the material to study and learn. So that's not a problem, but it's interesting. There's some folks that never drove, like the girls we had staying with us, that none of them really drove a car. So my wife had to teach them how to drive.
It's a lot of America's youth.
Yep.
They don't even want a driver's license.
Yeah, just kind of learn because again, there's so much opportunity. Like it's so hard to, if you don't have some kind of transportation, either public or your own. Like when I was, going to school, I utilized the public bus transportation.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I was motivated, as a guy, you kind of want to get a car, you want to get a sports car.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you got the testosterone going. You want something, so you kind of worked. So for me, I worked for my first car and was pretty excited to get it and pay it off and drive it. So there's some kind of pride in owning a vehicle, and it's kind of hard. You cannot do any work if you can't get to work. Right? It doesn't matter if you're going to work for somebody, if you're going to work for yourself, you need transportation in the United States. It's really hard not to have good, reliable transportation and do okay financially. It's like a prerequisite. You want to have good transportation. So a lot of folks that are coming, it's they understand it, but again, everything's expensive.
Yeah.
How do you buy a vehicle? And not only buy, how do you keep an insured vehicle when gas is over $5 a gallon?
Yeah, that's something I thought about because many months ago, I helped with the food bank down with the Spokane Valley Assembly of God Church. Mm-hmm. And it's all Ukrainian immigrants, all of them. And the thing that blew my mind was most of them were driving nicer vehicles than what I drive. And my thought was, oh God, they're getting ripped off at the dealership. Yeah. They shouldn't be financing these vehicles right now. So you brought up a good point. Yeah. And this is nothing new. Like, everyone's subject to this. Like, car dealerships ripping off people. So what was your experience with that? I see people all the time. I know people all the time. I'm like, dude, why did you buy that? You can't afford that. Like, no, you can't afford that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I would kind of put stuff in two buckets. I think one is, some people are maybe buying something they don't fully understand what they're getting into. Mm-hmm. And some dealership could take advantage of that if somebody's not sure, or maybe don't, English is not their primary language. I had that unfortunately happen with my mom when she was buying a house, and I was translating it, and they did some things that wasn't appropriate. And I don't know the reason for it, but again, if somebody just knew the language, where I kind of came in, is we saw some things, and I read some emails, so I had to call that bank out on a few things that came off just kind of more of, hey, they don't understand the language. But it's not always. There's always a lot of green apples, and there's a few rotten apples. I like to believe that there's only a few bad people in the world. They just move frequently. But I think some of the other bucket for folks having some cars is where I grew up in Ukraine. It's hard to buy a vehicle. Mm-hmm. So a lot of folks are pretty, I would say, handy, right? You're not going to go replace a car every year. So if you own a car, they're pretty good about, fixing the body work. They're fixing the mechanical. And something we have around here is we have, auctions. We have one in Airway Heights, Copart. Somebody gets a fender bender car. They somebody rejects a car, goes on an auction. So I know some of the folks from the community, they'll buy something that needs a little bit of, like, let's say, sweat equity, right? And then you can get something a lot cheaper than you would maybe at the dealer.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, and we got.
I just worry about the dealers around here that are ripping off the community.
Yeah, could be. I'm not too.
Well, I think they're ripping off everybody.
Yeah, I'm not too involved in the car business. but I know some of the, like, that was kind of my my deal too. I like German cars, I liked import cars, I like, and a lot of it had to do with, hey, if I put some work into something, right? If I can find something on Facebook Marketplace, I can pick it up from somebody that might, something mechanically, the car's perfect, just mechanically something major broke, and we just know how to fix it, right? Because a lot of folks that come, that's something they just had to do as part of life. Is over there, you learn how to fix your own stuff because it's expensive to take. It's expensive here to take it to a mechanic. It's not any cheaper. It just I'd say the way of life is a little bit different there for the mechanical, like hands-on things. So a lot of folks know how to fix something if something goes bad with vehicles.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they're thrifty, and I think about if, well, they come here. It's a different world. They're processing two different shocks, maybe a shock of war, a shock of culture, and then you see all this American culture and all these cars and these nice cars, and then you like feel compelled to want to fall into it too, and you're like, I made it to America. I could do this. I could do that, and then before you know it, you're buying a car, and then the job you thought didn't come through, or the paperwork didn't come through. Probably shouldn't have bought that car at that point, but I totally understand the concept of feeling of freedom that you get with having an automobile.
Yeah. Well, I think the beauty here is a lot of folks that come, and even when we came here 23 years ago, and this is only this is my feedback, and this is my opinion, but I think of United States as the cleanest, dirtiest shirt of the world. It's not perfect, but it's the best one that exists, in my opinion. I wouldn't be here. The opportunities I got coming here. Can you imagine? Let's just say 23 years ago, family of 5 came here with $800. And there's systems and processes in place if you're willing to learn, willing to adapt, willing to work. It gives you that opportunity. It doesn't give you a handout. It gives you the opportunity, which I really, really appreciate. Something happened to me this summer is when we moved here, we lived in a Browns Edition, which is it's a neighborhood in Spokane that's unique. And I remember 23 years ago, we were 1 block away. So this summer there was a big food drive. And we had the opportunity to be in that food drive, just not in line to get food, but to give food away.
That's good.
Right? To participate now being completely on the other side, just 23 years later. And then my whole family was there, but my son was, going to with all these bags and packing the food and putting it in there, and just having that reflection of, hey, 23 years ago, I was that person, not even in the car, because there's folks walking up. I was there, and there's nice people, like all the organizations that put that together to feed. I think it was over 2,000 cars that went through that day.
That's a lot.
That was a lot. It was a big one. But imagine, that's why I say this is the land of opportunity, is you can come here with nothing, and the country gives you that opportunity if you're willing to work. I would say that's been my experience. Folks might have a different, but for me, and I try to teach my kids, and it's interesting, a lot of folks that are coming now, they see that opportunity. It's America's not perfect. Give me one country that's perfect. There isn't one. But this one, I would say, in my opinion, is probably the best one that exists at the moment. So, and that's how immigrants see it, at least from my side. That's how I see it, and that's many people that come, they see that opportunity. They see what's possible. They understand it's not going to be easy, though. And then if we have, our different teams, somebody helped us. That's the whole point. Somebody helped us. We didn't figure it out. There was somebody. It's kind of nice. Somebody was there to guide us, And now we have opportunity to do the same thing just a lot, I'd say better, because there's more of us that are, have the language, we speak the language, and some of us had the opportunity to learn how things are structured here and how to do things, appropriately, so folks don't make the same mistakes we did just because we didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty rewarding, but you see the challenge, because it's not just our community. I would say the communities we all live in, Slavic, non-Slavic, there's some challenges that we need to kind of come together and overcome. And they're easier to overcome when you have a diverse group of people with different lenses of how something could be solved, and you come up with way better solutions, where there's multiple of counselors give way better advice than just one or two people deciding everything.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So it would seem like growing your mastermind of that community and cultivating it would be very beneficial in the long run to create a better tomorrow for all people coming over from Slavic areas.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be nice to have all these services that could be offered that are culturally appropriate too. Because a lot of folks, it doesn't mean it's a hybrid kind of model, where if somebody comes in and needs something, for example, if there's a Slavic, urgent care, or a Slavic hospital, or a Slavic, so if we're looking at the medical field, where they come in and they understand there's certain things that are appropriate and effective. And from I did some healthcare consulting before, and it was so interesting where there's some facilities and clinics that try to like colon cancer. It's a big issue worldwide, and colon cancer screening, right? So they have colonoscopies that they do. That's kind of has a way longer. You get one done, you're good for 5 or 10 years, depending on what they find. And then they're called, fit kits. They're called, blood tests that you just kind of test once a year. And the reality is you tell somebody that didn't grow up here, like, hey, you need to kind of test your own poop, or it's not that hard. But you tell somebody, hey, we're going to do a colonoscopy on you and explain what's going to actually happen in that procedure. You have a lot of folks that exclude themselves from that screening, right? Just because, but then again, they get colon cancer and they die. Well, if we just knew that, we could kind of pivot that conversation to, hey, we don't always have to do a colonoscopy for screening purposes. If they're just routine, why can't we do a fit test? You just kind of, in the privacy of your home, you test your poop, you send it to the lab, and if you're good, you're good. And if something comes positive, now there's a good reason to explain to somebody, like, hey, we found something that might be of concern, or you really need this procedure to potentially save your life. Right? So, but we're missing a lot of them. And not just our community, the Slavic community, non-Slavic. We miss a lot of things just because, it might not be culturally appropriate. There's so many different cultures in Spokane. So in healthcare, but imagine having one that's, Slavic, and you have that understanding of some of the, barriers folks have and overcoming them. Right. So any kind of other services, you want to go to a restaurant and there's, cuisine that might be there from somewhere where you grew up when you were a child, and you have that opportunity first, for the community that knows what that food is and where it came from, might bring some memories back, some normality back, as well as, hey, what a unique place. You show up and you're not Slavic. You're like, hey, I don't have to travel across the ocean to try real authentic Slavic food. So there's so many different, I feel like, services and opportunities in our community to experience so much culture, if we can just make it more, stable, where we have some of the services that a lot of other communities already have that are a lot smaller size. They're there's resources, there's opportunities open for them. And I think if somebody gives us the same opportunity, it would be both beneficial for the community and our community that needs some of that kind of push and investment.
Yeah, that's an important point. And I think about like you brought up restaurants. That would be a good thing for people to get started in. I wonder how high of a startup cost that would be. And then they're really only limited to your imagination, to their imagination. And then your goal is with your organization is to get people in the right direction so they can start living their entrepreneurial dreams.
Yeah, it'd be exactly that. Is having the dream would be having a Slavic community center, having a big center where doesn't matter if you have questions about healthcare, doesn't matter if you have questions about food, driving, starting a business. If you're struggling with some kind of addiction, if you have any behavioral health or mental health things that are present, there's a central place you go. It doesn't mean we offer every service, but we understand what the community needs. And then we're that referral partner too, is, hey, this is a place where you would go. Because again, there's that community aspect where people trust people within the community, and giving that referral saying, hey, you might be dealing with this addiction. This is actually a service in the community that could really help you to battle whatever you're battling. Or, hey, I'm not sure what kind of paperwork I need. Hey, I don't know where to get a business loan. Hey, I don't know where do I get my clients, right? Because, it's so much transactions. There's a lot of, in Spokane, there's so many different businesses. There's so much different vendors. We all look for business. We're all exchange a product or service for dollars. So again, it's just coming, somebody can go to one center that's, if they're Slavic and they're not sure, they might not have the language, somebody can explain to them, hey, let us connect you to a subject matter expert in the area that you're seeking advice that has that lens of Slavic culture and what's appropriate, and can explain it in a way that person actually understands. So they can make, again, it's how we started off the conversations, having that education, big into financial literacy, but then again, it's just being able to communicate good information that's true. It's not warped, but then the person has the ability to understand that information. Because if we can't communicate, appropriately, and we're miscommunicating on certain things, the person might take action on just bad information. And that happens a lot in healthcare. That happens a lot in a lot of different industries, especially if you start, English is a second or third language. It's hard to communicate exactly. So it's nice to have a place where folks could go, could be understood, and, feel like they're part of a community that cares about them, and plug them into services that they need, either to utilize or services they could offer to somebody else that might need those services.
Yeah, so it sounds like a community center is a goal for you.
Yeah, that'd be a big win, I would say, is if we have a community center that has that ability, has that. It definitely takes capital. It takes, there might be some opportunities for grants. We're not sure. We're exploring every avenue of having something that's available to help kind of spearhead this and build this. And the sooner we have something, I think the better it'd be for the community.
Yeah. I know there's some community centers all over. But it doesn't seem like it would be an impossible goal. Like you could easily find, maybe not easily, but you can find a place that you can convert into that. So what's the church scene like for the Slavic community? Is there a lot of churches for them? or I don't know.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
me about
Spokane's pretty, a big part of the community is I would say a religious group.
Mm-hmm.
There's different churches, different beliefs, but definitely the churches play a big role in the community life, specifically with actually the immigration work that happened too. Is a lot of churches responded and just housing people, providing meals, providing transportation. So just sharing a lot of their resources out of their heart to help the community, and that's something they there's other churches that do the same thing for. I know our homeless population. They have places to eat. They have a lot of churches offer things for our community. So but church is a big part of not everybody's life, but a good chunk of the Slavic population are, I would say, are religious and are going to a Slavic or non-Slavic church nearby.
Yeah, so right now that's the center of their social lives.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if they had an alternative center to their social lives for their business lives.
Yeah. Yeah, and just having a community, again, it's folks that I put kind of people in 3 buckets when they were coming. And it's the 3 buckets that they could just easily to process. And folks that have already been here for a while, doesn't mean they're newcomers. You have folks that have friends or family, right? Folks that are coming, they actually know somebody here in town or nearby. So they have some kind of relationship, either friend or family. The second bucket, they have that, I would say that religious bucket. They have a church. They have a body of faith, whatever sect it is. They have a place that they're coming to. And they might not have family or friends, but they have a community that's like them that they can plug into. And I would say the third bucket is folks that are coming that they don't have any kind of faith or any kind of belief, so they don't plug in with the churches, but also they don't have any family or friends. They just showed up to a new country by themselves. Yeah. And I think all those 3 buckets are important, and the solutions for them are or need to be a little bit tailored to their demands and their needs.
Yeah.
So so that's where I see a lot of people, and making sure that we kind of don't have any gaps, because there's always gaps, and we want less people to fall through the cracks. It doesn't matter if they have no family or friends. What are some pathways for them to create new friends? Have that opportunity here if they don't know anybody.
Yeah.
And if they're not going to go to, we'll just say a church, where else can they go to have community? Is it the business world? Is it, the food world? There's a lot of places folks can go. But that'd be a good one, just to have, again, solutions for folks where they feel they're part of I would just say the community. There's a Slavic community, but there's just a community. I mean, we're all different. We're all unique, but overall, we're a big city and a big community of folks all over the world that are kind of in one city.
Yeah, I remember when I worked for this cabinet shop here in the valley, and there's this guy. His name was Peter. He's from Ukraine. He's been here forever. I think his English still sucks to this day, but he's probably like 65. He's still working. He's a workhorse. And I remember when I first started off there, they had me in milling. And this is what this, and so he would take these boards and he'd run them through this overhead sander, and it would come out the other side, and I'd take them and I'd stack them. And that's pretty much all we did all day, 8 hours a day. He would just be running these boards. And this guy would generally do this by himself, 8 hours a day, all day. He was just a workhorse.
Wow.
Just doing this for years. Yeah, and so I think about that, and it's a great group of people because they assimilate very quickly into American society, which is good, and they actually want to work. Unlike, there's so many damn Americans out there that just don't want to work and all they want is welfare.
Yeah, but it was interesting because I think one comment you made is the language. I'll share something from my family. So my dad was when we came here. So pretty much both of my parents gave up their jobs when we came here. So he had a pretty, let's say, prestige job in the medical field. Similar. There's different titles, but it'd be kind of like a medical examiner here. And then he went from that to work at a car wash, bubble bath downtown Spokane. Right. So it's the first humbling experience, but then two, you're not gonna support a family working at a car wash, just minimum wage. It's gonna be tough. Right. So quickly he worked there for, let's say, about 6 months. And then he's looking for the land opportunity, looking for what's available. And he went to construction and he found, a Slavic employer that he didn't have to learn the English right away. Right. So he didn't have to learn the language because everybody who worked there are bilingual. And he did that for about 8 years. And then after we got on our feet, what he did is he started looking for a job. It didn't have to pay better, but he wanted a job where it would be only English-speaking people. So, but almost 10 years later, he found one and he switched. And he was forced by necessity to learn. And that was his goal. He said, hey, I want to put myself in a place where I will have to learn the language. And that's what he did. So for his English got better, but I see that becoming for other folks that if they, out of necessity, it's not that they don't want to learn the language. They got to start making money right away to provide.
Oh yeah, he's just a workhorse.
Yeah.
They're
So
just
they find
workhorses.
So they find a place, I think, to work, and they can get comfortable, and I think that would be a good challenge, is finding ways where folks can still make a living, but then have that opportunity to learn the language as well. I had somebody stop by my house yesterday. It's folks that migrated here about a year ago. So he stopped by my house and we had a conversation, and I said, "Hey, how's your English?" Right? He's learning. He's in a construction world right now, and he's probably going to open up his own business to do something simple like flooring, something indoors. He's really like a master craft with his hands. But he says the biggest challenge I'm having is I want to learn the language, but I can't, because in the beginning when we came here, he had time to learn a little bit.
He's working his ass off.
And as soon as they gave him opportunity to work, he said, "Hey, I have he has a big family, a lot of mouths to feed." And he's working 10, 12, 14 hours a day. He's working. And he said, I understand, for me to get ahead here, I need to learn the language, but my challenge is when, right? You put in 14 hours, let's just say he sleeps 8, that's 20 hours already out of the day gone, with no commute, no food, no nothing. It makes it a little bit tough.
That's the paradox of being an immigrant.
Nope.
Where you come here, that's the paradox of all these immigrant communities. They come here, they know they gotta learn the language, and it would benefit them, but they gotta work. Yep. And generally, the skilled labor jobs, don't require a whole lot of communication with, customers daily. Yeah. You were very blessed because you left your comfort zone. You kept forcing yourself to fail in these social situations. And, people appreciate somebody who tries to make an effort.
Yeah. Well, I think it gives us, specifically me, the opportunity too, is to, every time we have a workshop or a group of people, to remind folks saying, hey, I'm able to be on the other side because, one, I learned the language, and it doesn't take, because when you break it down to somebody, that's how I learned. is for about the first year we came here, is taking a year and making yourself learn 20 words a day.
Yeah.
So you learn how to spell them, you practice pronouncing them, because you have still, if you're not, you got to work on the accent too. Right? Because it was so funny in 2000, we didn't have all these AI, Google Translate, we didn't have any of that. So we came with like physical book material, and my parents decided to buy British English.
Oh.
So we showed up here, and like you're learning all these, I'd say proper words. Folks listen and they say, hey, nobody talks like that here. So somebody gave me advice. They said, hey, Pasha, listen to the radio and watch Mad TV.
That's a good one.
and that's how I picked up the language, the slang, how the way you communicate. And again, it's just pay attention. But 20 words a day, it took about a year, and that's it. It became so much easier because again, I learned my first word on the plane here, right? But you put 20 words a day for a year, you have a pretty big bank of words. And for somebody that's coming, I don't tell them that. I just say, hey, this is how I learned. But can you imagine if you just learned 5 words a day, and only, let's just say 5 days a week? That's 25 words a week. But then you have like a month, right? You're putting hundreds of words in your mind. And if you're going to the grocery store, again, if you're watching Mad TV, if you're watching TV in general, listening to the radio, things start to make sense.
Yeah, you start to understand what they're saying. Like, whoa, I understand that now.
Yeah, so again, it's just if somebody just puts it in and, hey, you can't do 5, hey, do 2 words. Okay, maybe instead of you taking, 3 to 5 years, it'll take you 10 years. But hey, if you're going to live here, hey, time flies. So it gives us the opportunity to let folks know, hey, learn the language. It'll open doorways for you. I tell people don't get in debt.
Yeah.
It's a fast way to get yourself in trouble. Here is going to become a slave, just because that's my the world I live in professionally. Is we're always trying to let folks know, like, hey, have a budget. Make sure you're mentally have a good relationship with money. Make sure you have a good budget. Make sure you have good financial education. You don't have to be a financial advisor, but just have common knowledge where you know how to make good decisions.
Yeah.
So that's been pretty fun.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I was in Afghanistan. Prior to going, I learned. I spent a solid 6 months and many hours a day after work studying the Pashto language with Rosetta Stone, and I was learning proper Kabul Pashto, which they would speak at the capital. And then I showed up there, and they spoke hillbilly Pashto in the Helmand Province where I was. And so I had an interpreter who wasn't that good. But either way, I would get 10 words a week translated for me that were words that I generally needed to use, like the road, like drive on the road, or something... common survivalist things I would get translated. But you're right, over time, when you're forced to be the only person that knows that language, any part of it, you learn a lot and you start to pick it up, because your problem solving goes into full spin, because you're literally trying to interpret, what are they saying? How am I going to find the words to express what I have to say, and hope that it doesn't end wrong in the conversation.
Yeah, and it's I think circumstances, like you said, if you're put out of necessity, the human will figure it out. Something helped me. I had one teacher in school. There's a reason they did this, but they decided to have me stand up and read in front of the class. And then everybody that, this is the first year I was here.
Oh shit, that's tough.
Yeah. So they kind of put you on the spot. It was honestly uncomfortable. It was embarrassing. But again, looking back, it said, hey, that really did something where, hey, either skill up right? Or stay being embarrassed because, like folks played a little popcorn reading. Somebody can, in a minute read a page, and it took me 10 minutes. And then everybody like, come on, but you're put on the spot. But then again, I think that's, doesn't matter where we're from. If we're put in that's always that decision is, hey, if things get hard, if things are difficult, we can just skill up and become better and take care of it versus, than just complain and be in torture the whole time is, maybe hope things don't get better, just become better at them.
Yeah.
Just don't wish things to be easier, just become better, become a little better each day. And, hard things come and some are pretty hard, but again, and, just get a little better and things start getting easier, not because they're easier, just because you're becoming a little bit better each day.
Yep. 1% a week, you're 52% better by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's the way I find a lot of things are, whether it's learning how to code or learning how to surf. Like, it's not easy. Like, you might think it's easy. You might, like, until you're that kid who has to stand up in front of the class and then everybody sees that, oh, you got some shit to work on. I mean, then that's the point where it's like, okay, this is the self-reflection I need.
Yeah.
And that's a very good transformative experience. So that was a milestone in your life that made you realize, hey, it's time to level up my skills. And it's done really good for you up to this point in life. So, well, we've been running for an hour and a half. So where can people get a hold of you?
Yeah. So for me, the easiest thing is, if you go at Pasha Petronav, most social media platforms will have me. So I'm on, Instagram, on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, but just at PashaPetronav.com. That way you get to know me a little bit, and then anything tied with my business will be there as well.
Cool. You got Facebook, you got a Twitter, you got a LinkedIn?
Yep.
Okay, so you got LinkedIn. We'll add that in the video description. Another thing, books. Any books you read or suggest people read?
Yeah. One of my favorite books, and I'll give you some books that really, really helped me, is there's a tiny book called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say out of a lot of the finance
real good
books is a good one to read. I really like the thinking. So Think and Grow Rich is pretty good to kind of challenge your thinking. I do go to church. I'm a believer, so I love the Bible and the concepts it has, especially in Proverbs. Right. So if you want to read 66 books in one, just pick up a Bible. That's a good one to have. But there's a few other ones that are more newer and some new authors I really enjoyed. One's called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. It's a good book where you can apply it in business, you can apply it in life, you can apply it to relationships. But it's just such a good way to see how, because everything we kind of talked about today, things compound. They're always compounding. The effects is either it's going to benefit you or hurt you. Mm-hmm. Right? If somebody, compounds with financially, you're either getting better financially, starting to compound when you're investing, or it works the opposite way when you're getting into more debt.
Yeah.
You start eating, more calories, and it seems like, well, what is 100, 200 calories a day? It's a Snickers bar, right? It's just an extra soda, but give it 20 years, you have diabetes, and you have health issues, versus just saying no to a few things and just saying, hey, how about 5 push-ups a day?
Yeah, and that's something we didn't touch on, which is physical fitness. And how active are you?
Yeah, I try to be pretty active. I wake up pretty early every day, so I usually have my time. So I'll usually go for a walk or a run, and I'll just do some basics. But I try to stay in good health.
You're definitely disciplined about it. That's for sure. You can tell that you wear your discipline on the outside of your body. So
So But yeah, those books definitely help. And there's a lot of good books, I would say, but those are the ones that had probably a big impact on me in different areas, from, professional life to financial life to spiritual life. Those books really kind of guide my principles and help me, focus on the things that I want to do. Is I do them because I value people. I don't care where somebody's from. I don't care if they're Slavic, non-Slavic, which country they ever came from. I believe we're all, there's one race, it's the human race, and we're here to help one another. And some people come, for a reason, for a season into our life, and some come forever. We just don't know every interaction we have, if it's just for a period of time, if it's, for just a season of time, or if it's forever. We're going to be, it's a lifelong friend, a relationship, partnership. So.
Well, good. That's beautifully put. And you have a very meaningful life and amazing things going. And we'll put all that in the video description below. That was Pasha, everybody. Be sure to like, subscribe, and smash that bell for more data-driven updates. Bye!